observers we've been speaking to on the ground and voters as well have said that they went into this contest completely digitally blind almost. This is the first time in Uganda that the internet has been switched off entirely, and it really raises suspicions of fraud because no one knows what's happening behind the scenes. So even Museveni does win this in a landslide victory, he's going to have to respond to questions. Why did the government feel the need to switch everything off? As Bobby Wine has said, the government is scared, and Museveni, yes.
And the opposition was counting on messaging apps to tabulate and to keep tabs on what was going on. And our correspondent earlier telling us that it's difficult to know what's going on outside of Kampala.
Yes, and Bobby Wine, had told his supporters to download an app, protect your vote. But obviously, given the shutdown, this was compromised. This was impossible. My family, I haven't been able to speak to them for a few days because they can't access the internet. Some of their phones are not working. This is really a climate of uncertainty and intimidation, and add to that the fact that you have soldiers patrolling the streets, police officers on rooftops to protect, to prevent any potential protests from breaking out. People have said to me that this is not an election; it's almost as if we're going into a war zone. And the fact that you have former army commanders who fought in Somalia, they're the ones that are overseeing these operations to keep the peace, really does paint the picture that Uganda is preparing for conflict.
Well, it's interesting you were mentioning age because 3/4 of Ugandans are under the age of 35. So that means that since Museveni has been president since '86, it's the only president that they have seen, which I can relate to. Not that I'm that young, but in Turkey, the youth which is coming to the age of voting, for instance, Erdogan is the only president that they've had and that they're going to vote. What is interesting, though, and I think that kind of shows something very Shakespearean and very tragic in politics and maybe even in our journalistic job, is that when Museveni came to power in January, which '86, he was received as the liberator, as the person who was bringing peace to Uganda, which is completely landlocked. And that shows basically that when he
followed up from the murderous regime of Milton Obote.
And he did bring economic stability to the country. So what the Ugandans have to choose is between stability and security, and also an abstract idea of basically freedom. And which is also very, I forgot my train of thought.
No, I was going to kind of cut in there because what is interesting also in the contest between Bobby Wine and Museveni, he came to power as a freedom fighter. He said that the problem with Africa and Uganda in particular is that you have these leaders who cling on to power. They don't want to go, and so he wants to come along and change that. And 35 years later, you have Bobby Wine coming along saying, well, look, he's overstayed his welcome. It's time for him to go. So both of them are freedom fighters in their own right, but obviously separated by a huge generation.
I had my thought come back. But basically that shows that if you stay in power for too long, it becomes even more difficult to beseech you or to take you out of your seat. I'm not saying in terms of make a coup. I'm saying it makes it even more difficult to give up that power. And that's where it's I mean, we'll maybe talk about it, what's going on with Merkel. And the fact
but Ugandans, they're looking at what happened in Sudan, what happened in Egypt, where these elderly rulers were chased out by their populations, and they're saying, well, look, it's Uganda's time for an Arab Spring almost, an African Spring.